Hello, this is MetaNetTV, and I'm John. Today, I've got as my guest Dr. Jack Rogers from the University of Exeter Business School in the UK, where he's the senior lecturer in economics and director of education in economics. Did I get all that right, Jack?
Spot on. That's
Excellent.
no mistakes so far.
Great. And we are here to talk about Bitcoin, but this is kind of part of a loose series we're doing on Bitcoin, in the world of economics, and we're talking to a few different people with different views on how Bitcoin fits in or doesn't fit in with economics, monetary policy, that kind of thing. I guess before we start, I'll give you the chance to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your role at University of Exeter, the business school, and yeah, we'll take it from there.
Sure thing, John. Thank you. By the way, thank you for inviting me onto MetaNetTV. It's a real
Most welcome.
pleasure to be talking to you. You're in Japan, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, so hello from Exeter, a long way away. As you said, my name's Jack, and I've been a lecturer at the business school. I don't even know, like 12 years or something. But I've actually been in Exeter a lot longer than that because I did my first degree here.
Mm-hmm.
I did master's PhD, so I've accumulated a lot of time in this wonderful city here. And yeah, I've been teaching economics. I'm more of a macro economist.
Right.
So, and I've been teaching macroeconomics all the way through. But I've also taught a whole bunch of related subjects in maths, statistics, a bit of micro, something called econometrics, which is basically just stats applied to trying to test like economic hypotheses. So yeah, that's kind of who I am. Yeah.
I see, and you have something of a background in Bitcoin. You've actually been involved with Bitcoin for a number of years, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to put my finger on. I mean, obviously, when Bitcoin first started, I'd never heard of it, obviously. Probably sort of after 2 or 3 years after the white paper, I was probably just about to complete my PhD,
Mm-hmm.
and I just kind of heard about this thing called Bitcoin. And I was already teaching macroeconomics. And when you get to the subject of monetary policy, it's like, it has to be a footnote in a lecture at some point, right?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
this new thing called Bitcoin. What does that mean? Like, is it going to be successful? Does that mean central banks like lose control of something? Discuss. So
Yeah.
it kind of built up over time gradually from there. But it only really took off the last couple of years. So I'm going to say, 2 years ago, I met someone called Sebastian Plutzenader,
Mm-hmm.
who now works at Enchain. And
right.
I was his dissertation supervisor. And basically, he kind of introduced me more and more to the current developments in Bitcoin. And sort of through that, I don't know, we invited Craig to come along to Exeter with Jimmy for a debate.
Mm-hmm.
I lined up a couple of economics professors, an econ prof and a maths guy called Gihan. And yeah, and then obviously my interest has been building. So I decided to create this new module, which is open to anyone in the business school. Last year there were 60 students, now there are 200.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of growing in popularity, and yeah, we're kind of breaking down, I'm going to say, education sort of barriers, really, because I guess you probably know there's a lot of misinformation out there.
There most certainly
And
is.
yeah, there's a lot of ignorance in terms of just what even is Bitcoin.
Yeah.
People sort of hear about it, and they hear about the price hype and the scams and things, and
Mm-hmm.
criminals were using it in the past. And but they yeah, it's, I think a lot of the students that do it realize like, wow, okay, there's a lot more to this, and it's kind of breaking down my preconceptions about what actually is Bitcoin. So it's pretty cool. It's fun.
Yeah, well, I've been reading about Bitcoin since about 2011 or 2012, and to be completely honest, I couldn't answer that question either. What is Bitcoin?
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and I will say, no one on the planet should be saying that they know everything.
Mm-hmm.
The deeper you get, I mean, obviously some people know a lot more than others, and it helps if you're a computer scientist, right, or a really good programmer or whatever. But I think, you know, in terms of the evolution of what's happening and stuff, and when you look at it from a broader perspective, as a sort of human phenomenon, if you like, it's, you know, it's fascinating really to watch it kind of unfold across the world. Yeah.
Yeah,
Really
and
amazing.
it's definitely one of those topics where you come in thinking you understand it, and then you soon realize how much you don't know about the topic, and then the more you don't know, the harder it
Absolutely.
is to maintain an opinion sometimes.
Yeah, and it takes a wise person to recognize that, John.
Mm.
As in, the more you know, the more you know you don't know. I mean, it is a sort of umbrella opening up.
Yeah.
That's certainly what I find. I mean, I come in from an econ background, yeah.
Hmm.
So for me, it's fascinating because everything is built on incentivization, and as we watch this sort of BSV, MetaNet, and to be fair, lots of other projects unfold. I really see a sort of a new type of economics, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll buy it.
That is, sorry.
I'll accept that. Yeah.
It's a bit of a dramatic statement, but um, just a new way that we can do business
Hmm.
online. And again, the microeconomic incentivization is something that can be incorporated into things that we do online, which previously, as you know, with existing models, it wasn't possible. Everything's basically free on the web, and then there's these adverts, and that's basically the model. And
Yeah.
it's there are a lot of problems with that. I mean, Jack Davis on the MetaNet side of things has been very good at explaining those problems, and potentially how they can be
Absolutely. Yeah.
solved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, since the beginning, there's always been a need for the value transfer layer of the internet, and it was never really built properly. They kludged on the credit card system, which is probably about the worst thing they could have done, but it's what people
yeah.
are still using, and it's every bit as scary now as it was in 1997 or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to show my age here. I just arrived here at Exeter as an undergrad,
Hmm.
um, and yeah, my first proper job was in Belfast, um, towards the end of the .com bubble. And by the way, when I arrived in Exeter, this is a side note, we were actually given things called Mondex cards. Okay,
I've heard
so
of them.
yeah, we were one of only a few universities in the UK
Uh
where they
huh.
experimented with this Mondex card thing. And so my student card had this chip on it, and basically we preloaded money onto it, pound sterling, and we
Mm.
could use it to pay like library fines and things like that on campus.
Of course, they think of library fines first.
Yeah. I don't know what that is the sort of first thing that came to my mind for some reason. I'm sure it was used for other things, but
Are they still
so
around?
anyway, yeah.
Are Mondex cards
Sorry, John.
still around? Do people still use them, or are they history now?
I think maybe the company still exists,
Hmm.
but it didn't really take off, but
Okay.
there was nothing wrong with it. It was just a bit inconvenient, and if you lost your card, you lost your money, and that type of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What's the card they have over in the UK now? Is it the Oyster card?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I'm just a country bumpkin down here in the southwest, so a long way from London.
Is that
But
only?
yeah,
Oh,
they,
right.
they, they
Okay.
use those Oyster cards. Yeah, they're pretty useful.
Yeah, we have a very similar thing here in Japan too, except that and it's accepted everywhere. It's as useful as cash. But the only
Wow.
problem
Okay.
is go outside of Tokyo and you can't use it. So it's a yeah. I mean, it's really useful if you live in that bubble. But if you go outside it, it's not useful at all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a new Mondex card. But
Mm.
so just to finish my little ramble,
Yeah. Sorry. Go
so
on.
after I graduated, I so I moved to Belfast, and then we were in this .com era, and I lived with this guy working for a company called Phone.com. So basically, it's just like today, if you put the word blockchain in the name of your business, like
Yeah.
people just throw money at you, right? And at the time, if you had .com in the name of your business, people just throw money at you. And all of the people I knew were, taking options to receive some of their salaries in the form of shares in the company.
Oh, I
Everyone was
remember that era
pushing
too.
as much money as they could into any tech stock you could name.
Hmm.
I mean, the euphoria was, let's not forget, it was really, really similar to this current hype phase, basically, of crypto and blockchain.
Yeah,
And
it
it
gets
really
compared to
reminds
that a
me,
lot.
a lot of kind of what happened. And the warning, I mean, that the crash was pretty severe.
Hmm.
Lots of people just were sacked overnight, but all their shares were worth nothing suddenly. I mean, it was very dramatic. So it's kind of like a lesson for me. It's just to keep in the back of my mind while all of this excitement is unfolding. Just beware.
Yes, please don't take any of this as financial or investment advice, and crypto regularly
Absolutely. I,
crashes.
I often find myself saying the same thing when I'm teaching.
Yeah. Well, the weird thing about blockchain and crypto so far is that it the souffle just keeps rising again after it goes down. So
Yeah.
nobody really knows whether that counts as the big crash or whether the big crash is yet to come. The big crash is when it goes to zero and never rises again.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I show on my Bitcoin module guy who blogged about this called Matsumura, I think is his name.
Yeah.
And he basically said, the interesting question is what is the scale of this new phenomenon? So as you zoom in to like a price chart and zoom out, you get similar patterns repeating themselves. There's some interesting potential kind of deeper maths things going on here, but it is a case of stepping back and thinking like, well, how far is this going? Like, and for me, I think we're in the middle of it still. I think it's got a long, long way to go. I
Hmm.
wouldn't be surprised if there were all kinds of, beams and busts to come. So that's the kind of way I think of it.
Yeah.
But again, as you say, this is not financial advice. Very far from it.
Well, even when the .com crash happened in 2000, I think it was, most of the things we use the internet for today hadn't even been invented yet, or at least they weren't live yet. There was no YouTube, there was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, none of that stuff. It was just blogs and news sites, and a few
Yeah,
BBs, that kind of thing. But
yeah, I know, and yeah, you do have to remind yourself just how much progress has been made.
yeah,
But over a long period. So
I
yeah,
sometimes wonder, if we'd had Bitcoin back then, would the
mm,
would the .com bubble have not have burst because e-commerce would have been a little bit more active, or could have been a little
interesting
bit more
point.
active, whereas back then people were still not really keen to put their credit card number online. I know some people who didn't do it until about
That's right.
5 years ago,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
they should be afraid, but that's another story.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, who knows? Yeah, I mean, but as I say, I mean, as an economist, I mean,
Hmm.
we inevitably have to talk about things like the financial crisis and
Of
kind
course.
of what is a bubble.
Uh-huh.
I mean, sometimes people say everything is a bubble, like, but certainly when you see people investing in something that they pretty much know absolutely nothing about, but they're investing in it because they've heard other people talking about it, and people following, and this herd thing. There's a few ingredients where you can sort of say, right, yeah, this is kind of a bit of a bubble, but it's, yeah, as I say, some people say everything.
Yeah,
Everything is a
when I
bubble.
think of some of the things I got into when I first got into Bitcoin too, I never actually promoted them to anyone else, but I did experiment with my own money, which is kind of like a mad scientist cutting off his own fingers to see what happened. And
Right.
yeah, I lost a few fingers doing that, but I was crazy
Ouch.
back then. It was like, sure, a completely unregulated stock market. What a great idea. Cheers. I'll get into that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems
Crikey.
very foolish now.
Sure.
So in a way, you were kind of lucky to get into it a bit later. After you'd watched everyone else do all those dumb things.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of time for me to do dumb things in the future, but yeah, yeah. I'm sort of quite cautious by nature, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, not when it comes to experimenting with education, for example.
Uh huh.
I think sometimes you've got nothing to lose, really. But yeah, that's another story.
Well, I want to ask you. So you got into Bitcoin, somewhat recently, which also makes you a kind of an OG in the field, because anyone who's been in it longer than a year, I think, counts as an OG. But
Yeah,
you said you met Craig Wright, you met Jimmy Wynn, and you were influenced
yeah,
by a couple of other people. I think 2 years ago. Was that before or after the hard fork that separated Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash?
yeah. It was just before. Yeah,
Okay,
um,
right. So you sort of jumped
and
right into the thick of it there.
yeah, yeah. Excuse me. Just still recovering from a bit of a cold. Yeah, the that's right. There was a lot of heat in the build up to the next fork. But at the time, BCH was BCH,
Yeah.
and so we were just talking about Bitcoin Cash, and so it was a fairly straightforward. Oh, right. So there's this bigger block, uh, cheap transaction based
Mm.
hard fork of BTC, and so that was the nature of the kind of environment that
Did
we
you
found
under
ourselves in.
Did you
And
understand the
if you,
issues there?
sorry,
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wondered, did you understand the issues surrounding the large transaction blocks versus small and supposedly decentralized transaction blocks?
yeah, yeah. I mean, probably a few months before Craig and Jimmy came, um, I'd already been talking with Sebastian about all of this, and so I was sort of rapidly learning it, in more and more detail
Hmm.
how these things kind of work. And if you look at the debate that we recorded, it's on YouTube. You can see that, like, there's a professor called John Maloney who used to
Hmm.
teach me, who I absolutely love, fantastic guy. And then there's Gihan, the guy from maths, and you can see that, like, most of us academics in econ or whatever, we pretty much we hardly know anything. So what you often find is that in real time, while you're talking, there's this thing of like, by the way, there's more to Bitcoin than just BTC. There are these other things happening,
Mm.
and believe it or not, like, most people don't even know that. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
So
no, I think
there's
most people
there's a
watching
lot of
this would believe it
education
well.
to be done here,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
yeah. So we got a steep hill to climb. So
Very
in
much so.
your in the education module you built, that talks about Bitcoin, do you go into that? Do you go into the data economics and the block sizes and that kind of thing, and then talk about Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, all of
Yeah,
that? Right, right.
I absolutely. I mean, as an academic, I feel a big responsibility to try and be, I'm going to say, neutral, um, and really try and focus on like how it works. But obviously it's inevitable that while I'm teaching, whilst we look at like the structure of a block, we are going to inevitably start looking at the fact that, during the last few years, there are, forks and multitude of different cryptocurrencies, blockchains. And so we have to cover sort of fairly briefly how these things are different. Every now and then I can offer my own like personal opinion on kind of what's going on. But it has to be clear that that's just my opinion,
Right.
and everyone should feel that they have the ability to more meaningfully assess the debates that are unfolding and the different visions that people have for the future of what this whole thing looks like. Because again, I'm sure you know this. I mean, there's a lot of hatred and anger and bitterness and intense
Absolutely, yeah.
kind of stuff going on online all the time, and it's just really unhealthy, to be honest.
Yeah, so you're not on Twitter much, I guess, because otherwise you can be very tarnished by that after a while, I think. Just by reading it, even.
I stay well away from all this stuff. I'm not on Twitter. I mean, I think like many years ago I set up an account and then I just didn't use it. And I actually feel I had an instinct that this whole social media thing, it's just it has its uses. I mean, don't get me wrong, but yeah, this kind of free platform where people just kind of build followers and shout, and I don't know, it has its uses, as I say. It's very useful, but
let's just leave it at that. It has its uses and also the problems. But
yeah.
And I mean, given the age of the people you're teaching and the fact that they're interested in that kind of thing, you must come across a few people who are already a little bit passionate about one or the other in the class. You could
Absolutely.
get BTC, VCH people, or people who are like completely anti-cryptocurrency or anti-Bitcoin altogether.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I think our students are fantastic. We're very lucky here, and so even the students that come in with some preconceptions, maybe they're big fans of Ethereum or something. I don't know. I did a survey this year in the first lecture. Well, I did it before. I used SurveyMonkey just to get a quick handle on where they're coming from. And it was amazing how many more students now have invested in a crypto.
Right.
I mean, and it was like 20% or something, I think, from what I can remember. And then they listed which ones they had invested in, and of course there was BTC, but there were lots of others. No one had invested in BSV, by the way.
So yeah, I mean, that doesn't really surprise me.
No one had even basically heard of it. So there you go. But yeah, so in terms of your question about do they come in tribal? I think probably just a tiny handful do. And I remember last year someone wrote in my student feedback at the end of the module that I was this kind of BCH freak or something, because it was at the time of the debate when Craig and Jimmy came here. So there was a lot of kind of excitement around that, but you could see that this particular student was from the tribe, let's say.
Yeah.
And felt really peeved at this notion that anything else existed other than BTC.
Yeah.
Well, you've seen that, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I see it daily in my inbox. From old friends, that kind of thing.
But guess what? As I say, because our students come, they have to get good A levels or equivalent to even get here.
Right.
And so even when they come with those preconceptions, you can have a sensible conversation with them,
Mm-hmm.
and they can learn, and they can think about it, and they can move on and think, well, actually, okay, there's a bit more to this. Um, and especially when you're studying economics, the question, what is money? And
Mm.
you kind of go through this kind of textbook, medium of exchange, unit of account, store of value. There are kind of these so-called functions of money that you go through. And so there's always a framework from which you can assess these debates and step back and be like, right, to what extent can this be, for example, a medium of exchange?
Mm-hmm.
If transactions fees are really high, for example, right, does it, have a potential to be a successful medium of exchange?
Yeah.
Discuss. So we get those debates going. Yeah.
The one thing I've noticed about Bitcoin SV is it's probably a bit of a broader church as far as the economic policies favored by its users compared to other forms of Bitcoin, at least. Bitcoin BTC and Bitcoin Cash, they tend to lean pretty heavily towards the Austrian side. And I have to confess that's where I came from. I'm not an economist by any stretch, but that's probably the branch of economics that I'd read most about that made the most sense to me. Probably because I'm really bad at math, but I'm not sure if I still believe in that or not. I probably don't, but I've just been exposed to many more ideas since then, and I find in BSV, there's a real spectrum.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a good observation. But I from my perspective, though, I would say inevitably a sort of Austrian mindset, I'm going to say, it is more common, I think, even within probably the BSV community, from what I can see. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, that there is a broader discussion, and it's about keeping an open mind. So I'm trained in a British university, economics. So inevitably, I've gone through the Keynesian model of macroeconomics many times. It's one way of thinking about things, and it's basically this idea that the government can meaningfully use monetary and fiscal policy to kind of smooth out the booms and the busts. And if a lot of people don't like the idea that a government is able to do that. Now, I do at this point, if I may, I just want to bring up a very interesting conversation that has started between myself and an academic here called Neil Smith, because I drew Craig's attention to this, and he seems to be interested. When you step back a little bit from the Austrian versus Keynesian thing, that what we can say is that a lot of mainstream economics talks about this idea of a Walrasian auctioneer. So what they do is to get a sort of meaningful model that makes sense, we have to make some assumptions, and those assumptions often involve complete information. Everyone is rational. Everyone has all the information. So when they're making their economic decisions, if that's not the case, you quickly step into a world where anything is possible in your modeling strategy. So everything gets very, very complicated very quickly.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So if you step away from that assumption, which clearly you need to, because in the real world, nobody has complete information. You step into a world where potentially there's this thing called a coordination problem in economics. There's all this demand and supply for different goods and services out there, but it somehow, you have to rely on the Adam Smith notion of the invisible hand and just hope that the free market somehow gets us to this good place.
Yeah.
Now, what I see in BSV and what Neil has drawn my attention to is the fact that once you place everything in the context of information, right, and the idea that the economy is not in this kind of perfect equilibrium, you step into a world where actually the Keynesians and the Austrians, they can kind of agree with each other, because they can say, well, look, there's a coordination problem out there, and it's more just about whether or not the state is able to kind of alleviate things or not, or the individual with technology. And maybe BSV in the future represents this kind of new technology that can almost replace the need for a government to try and steer the economy. Discuss. I mean, this is a big, massive kind of worms I'm opening up here. But
yeah, well, I think that's the intent, really, of I don't want to speak for all the people in BSV because, as like I said, it's a pretty broad church, but there would be some people there who say, it's not such a bad thing for the government to intervene, but maybe we should try to move to a system where it's not necessary. It's
definitely. I mean, I think it's, in my opinion, quite naive to imagine a world where the government isn't involved at all in sort of some form of economic management in the distant future. But I do start to realize that, with automation, with so-called smart contracts, with more complete information about what is even going on out there, I do start to see a world where we can peel back this thing called monetary policy and actually say, well, maybe we just get smart as a government in terms of, how we think about fiscal contracts. So the government, I don't know, let's say it's in charge of, like here in the UK, the NHS, the health system. How do spending decisions get made? What's the sort of politics behind that, and how much of that can be automated? If we all agree broadly how that should work, we can start to automate things more with things like BSV. So it's for me the fiscal side. But you can imagine monetary policy gradually disappearing, but getting smarter with fiscal policy. That's kind of how I see it unfolding.
Yeah, I think maybe the main problem is getting people to broadly agree on how to approach something.
Of course, and this isn't going to go away. I mean, that I see that as a good thing. Like there should be a political process for how our society is managed. I mean, Craig often draws our attention to the fact that the rule of law is kind of important. And this sort of idea that in the future we don't need any government at all, I think is a bit extreme, to say the least. And I include economic management in that. And certainly I expect some people will disagree with me on that, which is fine. But that's kind of how I see things. Yeah.
You're far too reasonable for the world of Bitcoin, Jack. You got to go out there and get some strong opinions and go out there and troll every day.
Yeah, maybe I should inject myself with more testosterone or something and just try and get a bit more angry, start shouting. But Exeter's it's a nice, quiet place, and I'm just an academic, so I like I just like exploring ideas and discussing things, and it's just fun. Learning is just fun. That's kind of where I'm coming from.
That's a very good point. Learning is fun.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Excellent there. And I did have one other question. Oh yes, that's right, about Bitcoin and monetary policy. I think maybe the main point of difference between the Keynesians and the or even the monetarists and the Austrians is that the Austrians want that fixed money supply. They don't want inflation. They see inflation as evil, and I believe you described the notion that inflation is evil as kind of weird and not true.
Yeah. I mean, on a serious note, okay, I want to emphasize this. the hyperinflation that was experienced in like interwar Germany, Zimbabwe, and other places is very, very serious problem. But that problem is a specific problem, which is the breakdown of trust in the government, right?
Yeah.
When trust in the government breaks down, lots of things go wrong, okay, including trust in the management of currency, obviously. So that is a serious issue, and I'm not going to downplay that. But what I want to say is that when you hear people say, they dramatically pull out like a $10 bill or something and say, 10 years ago that this was, worth this much, and now you can't buy this much. It's like, of course, over a long period of time, because governments target inflation, that's the system, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at money as a long-term store of value, right, that's not what money is, okay? That's wealth. There are lots of places you can store your wealth, including gold, and that's fine. Do that. I mean, it's very easy to buy some gold. But money, that's not what money is. Money facilitates trade, and as I said, it's about information. And at the moment, we have a system where central banks, like here in the UK, explicitly target 2% inflation. Okay, now they do a good job. In the developed world in general, this is actually a really, really good system that has a lot of benefits. We can all see what they're trying to do. Every decision that they make is trying to steer the economy back to 2% inflation, unless other priorities take hold.
Could I ask, what are they trying to do, by keeping inflation under control?
Yeah.
Why is there inflation at all?
I'm sorry?
Why is there inflation at all? Like, you always hear the old trope about the ounce of gold being able to buy you a suit, 400 years ago, and it still couldn't buy you one today. So,
yeah. Well, these days, I mean, don't forget that monetary policy inflation targeting is relatively new. It's only a few decades old, and what they explicitly do is they use the base interest rates, and yes, they manipulate the money supply to achieve a 2% inflation rate. Now, why do they want 2% and not 0%, right? Now, this is where it gets really interesting. There's a few things, but one thing is the zero lower bound on nominal interest rate, the base interest rate. So this is the idea that, if you want to encourage spending and push the economy up, if you like, you're supposed to lower the interest rate, and that's what you do if inflation's gone too low. So when you hit the zero lower bound, you've got a problem. Like your basic framework has gone. Now, obviously, you're going to hit the zero lower bound more often if you target zero inflation.
Right.
By definition, you're going to be in this problematic area.
I'm quite familiar with that, living in Japan.
Sorry?
Quite familiar with that, having lived in Japan the past 18 years too.
I didn't want to bring it up because it's a painful subject.
It's not my country. I just live here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we often cite Japan, actually, as being in this kind of deflationary trap, if you like.
And
so the zero lower bound,
to the everyday consumer, deflation is great because, lunch costs exactly the same now as it did, 15 years ago. Maybe my salary hasn't gone up in that time either, but, it doesn't matter. Some things are even cheaper.
There you go. Go. At least there's a simplicity and clarity of what is worth what over time, right?
And I totally understand that, the economy is not all about me and other everyday consumers. It's there's a lot more complexity to it.
Definitely. And it's the person that doesn't have a job that we're concerned about, right?
Absolutely.
The unemployed guys. Yeah. And so that with through a Keynesian lens, that is caused by a lack of demand in the economy, lack of confidence. Now, if you're Austrian, then you'll say, well, people through a sort of biological evolutionary process, will become resilient, and over time you learn how to make decisions that sort of steer everything back to where it should be. And then that's fine. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. It's just there are moments in economies when it feels like dramatic action is kind of needed, like a sort of resuscitation, dramatic, some kind of fiscal monetary expansion. But as I said earlier, it may well be the case that the new technologies that we're using now. I mean, by the way, on the zero lower bound, okay,
Yeah.
the zero lower bound also exists because of physical cash.
Right.
So this is the idea that if the central bank brings the interest rate down to zero and then goes further, goes into negative territory, which it has done, right, in a number of countries, what then can potentially unfold is a passing on through the transmission mechanism of negative interest rates into the high street. And at that point, it's like, okay, so my money, even in nominal terms, not even in real terms, is making a negative interest rate on it.
Yeah.
And so if I convert my electronic money that's in the bank into physical cash, by definition, I'm better off. And so everybody at that point pulls their money out of the bank, and the bank's deposit base collapses, and there's a bank run, and we're in a credit crisis. So that's why central banks can't take negative interest rates too far. They can go a little bit there, but they can't go to -2% or something. It's just not going to happen. And so it's a vulnerability in the system. But guess what? That's only because physical cash still exists.
It sort of exists.
We hear the Bank of Sweden talking more and more about withdrawing physical cash completely. And that, just that alone, I mean, even before we talk about the very complicated technology that BSV and the MetaNet and so on can bring us, this is just a very basic thing. Like, is money electronic or physical? We haven't, the older generation, anybody above 60 here in the UK, it's very likely that they find it really hard to imagine a world without physical cash, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I went to a shop yesterday around the corner here, and I paid her with my debit card just for a newspaper. And I could see that she was slightly disappointed that I was getting the debit card out. And I said,
Really?
how much do you get charged on each transaction? And she was like, I think it's like 40p. So even if someone comes in to buy a chocolate bar or something, I get charged 40p on that transaction with through Visa. And she then said to me something really amazing, that most of our older customers around the corner, a lot of them come in with checks. Like, they still pay her with checks. They actually write out a check. I mean, we've got so far to go, over a long period of time, as we all gradually move towards the electronic world, let alone the possibilities of what BSV brings us, goodness me. So yeah, it's even just that thing of physical versus electronic, it is a big game changer, actually, and has big implications. But I guess implications that unfold slowly, a sort of slow evolution. Yeah.
True. I mean, here in Japan, people still love the cash. They're getting into the credit cards a bit more, but they love the cash. It's pretty safe. No one ever steals it from you.
Yeah.
When I travel overseas, when I go to the US or Australia or anywhere else, I'm often struck by, how much cash is disappearing. I used to pay with a debit card back in the 90s, but it was kind of a clunky process. Now it's just everyone just whips out the tap and pay or the PIN card, everything. And
right, exactly. And it just works seamlessly. I mean, the near field communication technology, again, has been a big game changer there.
Especially in the US. I think I've got my wallet out and pulled out some cash, and sometimes they'll give you a look. It's just like, oh, you're going to use cash.
Yeah.
And my friends actually said it to me. They're like, you've got money? So, yeah, it's begun.
That's it. And young people, increasingly, that's where they're coming from. that human relationship that you have, is difficult to break down. And as I say, in general, for older people, I remember my dad, like, I mean, he refused to use a debit or credit card because he was just like, I can't see what I'm spending or something,
Mhm.
So it's a very emotional relationship that people have with money,
It is, yeah.
including people's theories on money, and so that's why people do get very emotional and kind of they don't want to change, basically.
Hmm.
But if people around them that they trust start doing it, then they gradually start following. It's like, oh, this actually works fine. Okay, I'll try it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. I mean, I've always thought that people will get used to something new, and then if they don't, the people who don't get used to it will slowly just. I mean, the generations will change, if you want to put it really nicely. And
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
but I guess that probably the last question I want to ask you about Bitcoin tonight. I am conscious of the fact that you're recovering from a cold, and
Yeah,
and I've
yeah. I
just
do
come out of one
apologize.
myself,
It
so
just
I
won't go
sympathize.
away. Yeah,
I don't want to make you talk for like over an hour or anything. So, is
that's cool.
Bitcoin money?
I'm sorry.
Is Bitcoin money?
Is Bitcoin money?
Yeah.
Um, well, as Wei Zhang said when he came to Exeter recently from Enchain, um, Bitcoin consists of two words, right? There's bit and there's coin.
Hmm.
And the coin part is the money part, and the bit part is the information part. So Bitcoin is definitely a new type of money, but it sort of transcends um, how we even think about what money even is.
Yeah.
And it forces us to step back and go, actually, everything we do in economics that involves transfers is really just keeping a record of some information that is being updated.
Hmm.
And so when we think of money as just memory or information, then absolutely Bitcoin is money, but it's a whole new way of thinking about money, which is more and more mind blowing. Like I tell my students, just the more I learn about it, the more it just completely really blows me away. And and so I got to tell you quickly as well. Like I went out for dinner with Sebastian and Weijian, and I can't get out of my mind this vision that he told me, which may happen in the future. This vision of like a satellite out in space that is rigged with solar panels, and it's like sun energy is hitting that satellite, and then it's mining. Okay,
Hmm.
so it's converting energy directly from the sun into like useful information that it's beaming down to Earth through the proof of work, um, and kind of organizing human activity and adding useful information to what we do, but coming directly from the sun's rays. I mean, that is just so kind of exciting, and helps that vision helps people who are concerned about the environment when they're thinking about Bitcoin, because rightly so, people are concerned. The mining guys are using up all this electricity. I do agree with the notion that proof of work is the only way you can really secure something like Bitcoin. And but
Agreed.
I do also think that there's a long way to go in terms of transitioning to a green way of doing all of this.
Yeah.
And it will be economic incentives to source free energy that will drive that, and it seems to already be happening, right? We've already got hydroelectric power being generated by big miners, and miners are increasingly going to have to manage their corporate image as well, right?
Hmm.
So just on a basic level, this is bound to happen. It's just a shame that in the meantime, before Bitcoin has replaced lots of stuff in banking and legal services, we are actually, unfortunately, using up some electricity, which, is slightly not good. But we'll, I think we'll get there. I think we'll see that transition to a kind of a green, sustainable system with Bitcoin as well.
There are quite a few people who are looking at those solar models, and of course the Bitcoin node in space is something that often gets discussed on or proposed in some of the forums. I think Blockstream already has some small satellites up there that are doing something. I think they're just like transmitting.
I didn't know, really.
Nodes. They're not mining or anything, I think. I'd have to look into that.
Sorry?
I don't think they're actually mining. I think they're just like transmitting the transactions. But please don't quote me on that, because I'd have to look into it more.
Sure. I mean, but yeah, there you go. I mean, just satellites. Transferring energy through electricity is costly from one geographical place to another. But beaming information in a string of ones and zeros through radio waves and things it doesn't use up a lot of energy, so it kind of makes sense to me. Yeah.
Could someone who understands why that's a fantastic or a ridiculous idea please let us know exactly why in the comments?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Also, one other thing, Jack, you're actually planning a Master of Science degree in financial technology.
That's right.
Did you want to mention that before we head off?
Of course I do. I mean, thanks so much for. Now I get to plug my master's degree. No, seriously, I am so happy that we're launching this in September next year, and a lot of work has gone into this. So we're really excited about it. It's gonna have a multidisciplinary ethos, and so the core modules they're from pure finance. There's a couple in econ. One of which I'm actually teaching right now, called Applied Econometrics.
Right.
Now I'm going to hopefully sort of shove that a little bit more in the direction of so-called data science, which just kind of can mean anything you want it to mean.
Yeah.
But sort of try and maintain our economic sort of insistence on trying to be clear about your assumptions and how you sort of test hypotheses and this kind of formal way of thinking about statistics, but then bring in all of this new stuff with big data, Python, R. I'm catching up, to be honest. I mean, I used to be a MATLAB programmer during my PhD, but all of this open source stuff is all new to me. So I'm kind of playing catch up. But yeah, and then just to kind of finish that, we've also got like a law module, international banking law, because we kind of feel that gets neglected quite often in this disruptive space. If you're doing something that turns out to not be legal, it might not work out well for you. So we kind of feel that's important as well.
Yeah. Another thing people considering now that they might not have 5 years ago too.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can, like on this master's degree, you can actually pick options from like marketing, strategy, business. We understand, and we actually, in the hackathon project, which we're going to have in the summer, we want people, and I do this on my Bitcoin module, I get people in groups, and people have to play on their strengths. Like some people are good at the whole maths, computer science side of things. Other people are much better at thinking about markets and strategy and marketing and brands, images. There are just different strengths that people have, and it's all about bringing those things together and recognizing that if you can work in a multidisciplinary team, you're probably more likely to do better. And if you really want to be successful, maybe lead a multidisciplinary team as an entrepreneur, So yeah, we're pretty excited about this.
Awesome.
And I just want to say a quick thanks to Joel Dallet for advising and helping me, and the guys at Enchain. So we're talking with them
You're going to
quite a
meet
lot
them this week,
about
right?
how to do this. I keep looking at my notes right now because Wei Zhang, I said to him, what is FinTech actually?
Mm-hmm.
What actually is FinTech? It's going to mean different things to different people. On a basic level, yeah, like when you look at like Sterling Bank or whatever, just we can do stuff on our computer and online instead of going to a physical high street bank.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in conversations with Barclays now as well. They want to talk to me about this fintech thing because they're like, oh yeah, we can automate stuff online. So when I asked Wei Zhang, he was like, there are three things. You can automate financial services, you can reduce risks and human errors, and you can provide more accurate information and predictions, all with new technology. And I think, when you bring using the internet, machine learning, artificial intelligence, together with blockchain, there's a sort of synergy, I guess, between
Mm-hmm.
these things. What BSV allows with machine learning techniques is a sort of sound database, right? Data structures that are consistent and well stored and documented, which you can learn from
Mm-hmm.
as well. So I suppose in the end, there's lots to this, but it sort
Yeah.
of boils down to those three things. So I found that quite helpful as a way of organizing my thoughts while I'm developing this new degree. So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the business school at Exeter is it's regarded as like one of the top 1% business schools in the world, I think. So this is your chance
yeah.
to define what fintech means and say it is this because Dr. Jack Rogers at Exeter said so.
So yeah, I missed what you said just before that. Sorry.
Oh, you can actually define. You can put your definition of fintech and stamp the official seal of approval on that and say it is that because I said so. And
Yeah.
and I'm at the University of Exeter Business School.
That's right. Excuse me. Yeah, I absolutely. And I guess keeping in mind that it's a fast moving space, and academia is a slow moving space.
Yeah.
So there are dilemmas. I mean, we have to go through sort of formal bureaucratic approval processes, and things get set in stone in a world where you don't want things set in stone because next month things have changed. But I see universities all over the world stepping into this now, especially of course in America, but all over the world, very much so, and I imagine in Japan and other places in the East. That there are universities probably that are teaching this stuff, and it's exciting. We can get people from the private sector potentially working with academics, and that's you hear this term hub come up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a research hub, a fintech hub. So I'm sure that will be coming. We've already I've already been talking to a local business here. Well, I say local again. George Payne has got this company called GatePay, and he's based in Devon. But his company is in San Francisco, because of course we can all, just like we are right now, do stuff sort of no matter where we are on the planet. And in some sense, the whole point of fintech is that things can be mobile.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, you start to think, well, what actually is a university? I mean, why does a university have to be located in one physical place? Once upon a time, it was because of the books, right? The physical books
Yeah.
were just there. But I still like to think that there's a role and a value in just bringing people physically together in a room to kind of discuss things and work on things together, whilst acknowledging that fintech does mean, as I say, that we can do things remotely, and we can have sort of research networks that are global, which again is really, really exciting. Yeah.
It certainly can, yes. And if if there's people out there who who are listening to this and they think, oh, that's interesting, I'd like to try and get involved, maybe participate somehow, where can they find out more about you or get onto you somehow?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you just Google MSc FinTech Exeter, you'll find there's a description of the degree. It still has a way to go in terms of the fine details between now and September, but that gives you the structure and the modules and so on. It tells you there's a link to where you can sign up.
Excellent. I'll have my assistant put a link on this screen as well later. There we go.
I'm sorry?
I said I'll have a link put on this screen later.
Yeah, sure. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's all there basically. Yeah, you just Google it. So, sorry, you're making me think of my partner sometimes says when people ask her questions that you can't easily Google, it's like, by the way, there's this thing called Google. It's quite useful. But
true. We want to make it as easy as possible for it, though.
We have got everything up there, which is fairly recent. So we don't have to worry about people having to have any difficulty finding the information. So it's all out there. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Jack. And I really want you to go and get a cup of hot lemon and honey or something.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel bad about keeping you this long.
It's cool, man. I'll make some lemon and honey and stuff. So thanks. Yeah.
But we appreciate your rationality. You are quite welcome on MetaNetTV anytime you want to come back and discuss it more with a person of your choice. And thanks a lot. Good luck with everything.
Thank you so much. Really nice talking to you, John. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
Thanks, Jack, and see you later.